Right now, as you are watching this, 4 astronauts are strapped inside a spacecraft that almost killed them before it ever left the ground. The Orion capsule sitting on top of NASA's 32-story Space Launch System rocket at Kennedy Space Center has a side hatch with a thermal barrier that physically blemished during routine ground operations. It has a heat shield that violently shattered in over 100 locations during its only test flight. It has life support circuitry that fried its own controllers the moment engineers powered it on. And it was built by a contractor that has absorbed $13.8 billion in development funding, 37% over budget, without flying a single human being. SpaceX built Crew Dragon for $2.6 billion and has completed 13 crewed missions. Lockheed Martin spent 5 times that amount and delivered a capsule where the hatch door doesn't seal properly. This is the forensic breakdown of every defect hiding inside NASA's Orion capsule, and why $13.8 billion could not fix a door. The hatch defect. The primary entry and exit point for the Orion crew module is its side hatch. This is not a minor component. It is classified as a Category 1 safety item, meaning any failure of the hatch directly equates to loss of mission and loss of crew. The astronauts never operate it during flight. Ground teams seal them inside before launch. Recovery teams open it after splashdown.
Do it. Say it. Yes! Let's go!
If anything goes wrong with this hatch between those two moments, the crew has no way out. In mid-November 2025, during preparations for a countdown demonstration test inside the vehicle assembly building, technicians discovered a blemish on the hatch's thermal barrier, a specialized woven cord gasket that insulates the inner pressure seal from the 5,000-degree plasma generated during hypersonic reentry. The blemish physically prevented the hatch from closing. This is not an inconvenience. If that thermal barrier degrades during reentry, superheated gas breaches the pressure seal and the crew is incinerated. But the blemish was only the surface. According to the NASA Office of Inspector General, the Orion program had been grappling with a 7-year-long concern that the side hatch lacks a dedicated pressure equalization valve, making it physically difficult to open manually in an emergency. The OIG stated explicitly, the hatch does not meet pressure opening requirements. This is a haunting echo of NASA's darkest chapter. During the Apollo 1 fire in 1967, astronauts Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee died because they could not equalize pressure across the inner hatch fast enough to escape. After that tragedy, Apollo's hatch was completely redesigned to include a manual equalization valve. Orion, billed as a modernized Apollo, was built without one. That is not an oversight. That is a 15-year institutional failure. The failures kept coming. The thermal barrier blemish was repaired on November 18th, but the hatch problems did not stop. On December 20th, 2025, a pressurization valve associated with the hatch system failed during a modified countdown test. Technicians physically removed and replaced the valve, completing testing on January 5th, 2026. Then, during the wet dress rehearsal in early February 2026, that exact newly replaced valve required emergency retorquing on the pad. Simultaneously, engineers detected massive liquid hydrogen leaks in the tail service mast umbilicals. The February window was abandoned. NASA pushed to March, but on February 21st, an interrupted helium flow to the SLS upper stage forced a complete rollback of the entire rocket to the vehicle assembly building. The March window was dead. Launch retargeted to April 1st, 2026. And behind all of this hardware failure sits a whistleblower's warning from 2008. A subcontractor engineer named Joshua Foxworth alleged that the Orion side hatch was simply copied and scaled up from a legacy door design, likely Gemini or Apollo era, without the mathematical analysis to prove it would work at Orion's larger scale. Foxworth claimed the manual gearbox mechanism was physically incapable of compressing the denser environmental seal required for deep space travel. He says he was terminated 6 months after a perfect performance review for raising the alarm. 15 years later, the hatch is still failing. The heat shield that shattered. The hatch is not the only Category 1 failure hiding inside Orion. During the uncrewed Artemis I mission in 2022, the capsule returned from the moon at Mach 32, enduring temperatures of 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The Avcoat heat shield was designed to ablate cleanly, melting and vaporizing in a controlled manner to carry heat away from the crew module. Instead, it fractured violently. Post-flight inspections revealed over 100 locations of unexpected char loss, entire chunks of ablative material physically breaking off the vehicle rather than burning away smoothly. NASA's Tiger team found the root cause: trapped gases inside the Avcoat built up internal pressure during extreme heating and shattered the material outward in explosive spalling events. The NASA OIG issued a devastating warning. The quantity and size of the debris could have caused enough structural damage to fail one of Orion's parachutes, which could lead to the loss of the vehicle or crew. And it got worse. 3 out of 4 crew module separation bolts suffered severe melting and erosion. The OIG stated that bolt melt beyond the thermal barrier during re-entry can expose the vehicle to hot gas ingestion behind the heat shield, exceeding Orion's structural limits and resulting in breakup of the vehicle and loss of crew. Despite these findings, NASA chose not to redesign the heat shield. Instead, they altered the re-entry trajectory, abandoning the skip entry technique for a modified loft profile to reduce thermal stress. They are betting the lives of 4 astronauts on the theory that a slightly different angle will prevent the same physics from repeating. The circuitry that fried itself. If the heat shield protects the outside, the environmental control and life support system protects the inside. And it has its own catastrophic flaw. During qualification testing for Artemis III components, engineers discovered a severe design error in the motor drive circuitry controlling ECLSS valves. The flaw involved back EMF. When an electric motor spins down, it acts as a generator, sending stray voltage back through the circuit. NASA's Amit Kshatriya confirmed the part hard failed right off the bat, because this identical flawed circuitry was already embedded deep inside the fully assembled Artemis II capsule. Technicians had to physically rip into difficult-to-access locations to solder in new capacitors and resistors. This circuitry failure was a primary driver for delaying Artemis II from 2024 into 2026. And during Artemis I, the power and data units experienced 24 instances of uncommanded latching current limiter openings caused by deep space radiation, resulting in a loss of required redundancy for safety-critical systems during flight. This spacecraft has not demonstrated reliable electronics in the one environment it was designed to operate in. $13.8 billion and a broken door. How does a spacecraft arrive at the launch pad with a hatch that lacks a pressure equalization valve, a heat shield that uncontrollably sheds material, and life support circuitry that destroys its own controllers? The answer is 3 words: cost plus contracting. Orion is built by Lockheed Martin under a cost-plus award fee contract. The government reimburses every allowable expense regardless of schedule delays or cost overruns, then pays additional profit on top as an award fee. The longer the project takes, the more problems it encounters, the more the contractor gets paid to fix them. Total Orion development cost: $13.8 billion, 37.4% over the original baseline. In fiscal year 2025, the Government Accountability Office reported that Orion was the single worst offender among 18 major NASA projects, accounting for over $360 million in cost overruns in 1 year, 74% of the entire development portfolio's annual cost growth. And the NASA OIG questioned $27.8 million in award fees paid to Lockheed Martin, noting that evaluations were based on nebulous and dated criteria and that ratings of excellent did not reflect the contractor's severe performance shortfalls. Compare that to SpaceX. Crew Dragon was built under a firm fixed-price contract for approximately $2.6 billion. It has completed 13-plus crewed missions. It is operational, reusable, and its early technical issues were resolved within the program's first years. Orion has cost 5 times more, taken 4 times longer, and has never carried a human being. The cost-plus model did not build a spacecraft. It built a billing machine. The mission they're flying anyway. Despite all of this, the blemished thermal barrier, the missing equalization valve, the shattered heat shield, the fried circuitry, the $360 million annual overruns, NASA has pushed forward. As of today, April 1st, 2026, the countdown is underway at Kennedy Space Center. The launch window opens at 6:24 p.m. Eastern. Commander Reed Wiseman, Pilot Victor Glover, mission specialists Christina Koch and Jeremy Hansen arrived at Pad 39B this afternoon and took the elevator up to the White Room. Right now, the closeout crew is actively sealing them inside the Orion Capsule, engaging the very side hatch, manual gearboxes, and thermal barriers that have haunted this program for 15 years. Weather forecasters give an 80% chance of favorable conditions, though cumulus clouds and potential wind shear could still trigger a scrub. If the hatch seals hold and the weather cooperates, the SLS will ignite its RS-25 engines and send 4 astronauts on a 10-day free-return lunar flyby, the first humans beyond low Earth orbit since Apollo 17 in 1972. No lunar landing. The objective is survival and systems validation in deep space radiation. And once the translunar injection burn fires, there is no abort. They are locked into a ballistic trajectory for 10 days. What this means, going forward. Even if Artemis II succeeds, the volume of quality control failures in this spacecraft has already forced a reckoning. On March 24, 2026, 1 week before today's launch, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman unveiled a radical restructuring plan called Ignition.
Well, that's exactly right. We are just getting started. I mean, Artemis II, a historic mission. We send astronauts farther into space than ever before, around the moon, back here to Earth. And I'll tell you, as they were going around the far side of the moon, we were already getting ready for Artemis III.
The Ignition plan pauses the Lunar Gateway space station, reallocates approximately $20 billion toward permanent surface infrastructure at the lunar South Pole by 2030, and, most critically, explicitly opens the door to retiring the legacy SLS and Orion programs after Artemis III in favor of commercial alternatives. Isaacman delivered a devastating assessment of the cost-plus era. The agency can no longer endure multi-billion-dollar endeavors that forego the iterative approach to success. Tens of billions are wasted, time is lost, and exploration suffers. The industry is reading the writing on the wall. A human-rated SpaceX Starship or a modified Crew Dragon could eventually render Orion obsolete at a fraction of the cost. NASA's own safety panel has warned the agency to re-examine its mission architecture and establish a more balanced approach to risk. So here is where we stand. A spacecraft that cost $13.8 billion is sitting on the pad right now with a hatch that blemished during ground operations, a heat shield that shattered in 100-plus locations on its only flight, life support circuitry that hard failed during testing, separation bolts that melted during reentry, and a pressurization valve that had to be emergency retorqued on the pad twice. The contractor was rewarded with $740 million in award fees. SpaceX built a fully operational crew vehicle for $2.6 billion. 4 astronauts are sealed inside that capsule tonight. If everything works, they become the first humans to see the far side of the moon in over 50 years. If the heat shield shatters, the hatch fails, or the circuitry fries in deep space radiation, the world watches a $13.8 billion monument to cost plus contracting burn on re-entry.